Now, before getting into it here, let me warn you that there will be some major spoilers for the latest episode of The Mandalorian, which in this case is Chapter 14 or Episode 6 of Season 2. So if you have not seen it yet and you don't want anything ruined, it's a really good time to click away. Okay, so once again here we have quite an episode to discuss, albeit another rather short one because when the opening recap and end credits are removed, we're left with just 27 minutes of actual show. But they were indeed a great 27 minutes, which included the amazing return of Boba Fett, as well as the return of Fennec Shand from Season 1. And let me just say about that return that they nailed it. That was perfect. That was Boba Fett, or maybe I should say how I always imagined he'd be in live action, should he get the chance to showcase some of his skills. And I just love that there is a sense of honor about him, that he clearly lives by a code, that he even quotes his father's line about being a simple man making his way through the galaxy, and I like the little touch of him twirling his gun and holstering it at one point, kind of like Jango did. Yet at the same time, simple man or not, code or not, there is a crazy intensity there, and he can be a downright brutal killing machine when need be, and his action scenes were arguably the best in the show so far, and you know they're good when you're literally flinching when he's cracking stormtroopers with that gaffy stick, and chunks of plastoid are flying everywhere. So brutal, but so perfect for the character, I thought. Oh, and I also really enjoyed his little theme song. It was different, but it fit him well, I thought. So again here, that was Boba Fett. That was everything I could have hoped for and more, and it was so dang cool to not only see Slave 1 again, and to hear it, I do love the sound of the ship's engines, but also when he eventually got his armor back and then showed up to bail out Fennec and Din Djarin at one point, and then just proceeded to dismantle the rest of the stormtroopers with cold efficiency, and he forced the few that he didn't kill to flee. And let me just say that I thought Tamora Morrison did an incredible job all around here, especially with the way he just, again, brought that intensity during the fight scenes. And he even brought it when he was just seemingly calmly standing there and waiting. He gave you the impression of a predator just biding his time and waiting to make an ambush or some sort of strike. Simply put, and I can't get over how great this was, but this was Boba Fett the way I've always wanted to see him, and considering it seems that he's going with Mando to get Grogu back, again he does have a code, and a deal is a deal, it looks like we'll be seeing more of him this season, and if the rumors are true, and I think they are, filming of his own series is set to begin soon, really soon in fact. Apparently, and again it's just a rumor at this point, and I wouldn't expect any sort of official confirmations till after Season 2 of The Mandalorian, but filming of a Boba Fett series is set to take place even before the next season of The Mandalorian. But anyway, to get a bit more into the episode itself here, well, it was once again a rather simple premise or story, which is not a complaint, it is what it is, and I've said before, I'm impressed that the series manages to mainly tell very entertaining, self-contained mini-stories or adventures with each and every episode, yet it does it in a way that constantly furthers the larger plot to some degree. Yes, it does at times give off a bit of a video game vibe, especially considering we've had a few episodes literally end with Din Djarin very plainly being told where to go next and what to do next by someone, kind of like a quest giver. He's also attained special items that we know will be important later on, like the Beskar Spear that I'm pretty sure will be used against Moff Gideon and the Darksaber. And this episode wasn't much different from that formula. It kind of felt like a King of the Hill mission or quest where you have to stop the enemies from getting to the top of the mountain and taking what you have there, but thankfully some pretty buffed up NPCs helped you out. And even though you succeeded with the mission, you still get a cutscene at the end where the bad guys, in this case Dark Troopers, who unfortunately do nothing else in the episode, but I have little doubt that'll change soon enough. Well, they do something to take what you were protecting anyway, setting up your next quest, which is to bust someone out of prison to help you get back what you lost. And again, I'm not complaining. I pointed out because this formula is actually a lot of fun and has been working really well. In some ways, the show is everything I thought it would be going into it, and in others, it is not at all what I expected. And the blend of the two has led to something that, again, works and that I really, really enjoy, not to mention is unique compared to pretty much every other series out there these days. And I do have to wonder if this formula will change at all when, or if Baby Yoda or Grogu ever gets found and taken by a Jedi for training, since he and or finding his place has really been the driving force behind all these different sort of missions we see each week. And I really do think he will be gone at the end of the season. I am still holding to my prediction that the season ends with the two going their separate ways, and that Grogu's first spoken words will be to say goodbye to Din Djarin. And by the way, this episode opened up with a terrific scene between the two, and I loved the way Mando was using Grogu's name to finally get his attention and maybe to get him to listen a little bit anyway. Well, not only did I fully expect him to be taken again by the end of the episode, which he was, but I feel stronger than ever that the Mandalorian is realizing that no, he's not the right person to raise this child, that Grogu is too powerful for him, which we kind of see showcased at the end of the episode when Grogu is flinging around stormtroopers. And don't get me wrong here at all, I think the child has been a great 2-season story arc for Din Djarin, that he goes from initially handing over the child to the Imperial remnants, even though he knew that was wrong and pretty quickly changed his mind, to now clearly growing very, very fond of him, to the point where he doesn't want to give him up, but he knows it's the right thing to do. And though I certainly think the show can and would work just fine if the child stays with him, and I wouldn't be opposed to it, don't get me wrong, you have to wonder what kind of stories could they do with them. Because this is now the second season where the child has been hunted, and the second time a season will end with him being captured and then needing to be rescued. And so obviously each season being about just keeping the child safe is probably going to get a little old or stale, I think. And though Din Djarin teaching Grogu the ways of the Mandalorian, and him wearing a little Beskar helmet sounds like it could be the cutest thing ever and would be fun and interesting, it'd have to be more of a B plot, I think, and a new A plot or main driving force behind the story or series would be needed. But anyway, let's get back to talking about the episode. And I gotta say, I was a little surprised that we went right to Tython. I was really sort of bracing myself for maybe some sort of filler episode before the last 2 episodes of the season would take us there, and then we'd end with a Jedi showing up to take Grogu. But instead, we went right to Tython and saw an ancient structure atop a hill or a mountain, and that was about it. We didn't really explore or get to see much else. Not that I was expecting a deep dive into it, but considering its importance in the lore, I did hope to see a bit more of it. I did hope to maybe see a couple moons in orbit around it at least, but that was not to be. So some mild disappointment there, but again, it's not like I expected too much, but I did hope for a little something, and everything else about this episode made up for it anyway. And the thing that I have to say surprised me the most about this episode was watching the Razor Crest just get blown up out of nowhere. And of course, after I backed the Hasbro Pulse project to create it in toy form. And this isn't like before where we've seen it take some pretty serious damage and then get fixed. This time there was nothing left of it but a crater, certainly not enough to ever put the thing back together again. Though again, Din Djarin did find his Beskar spear, as well as that little knob Grogu loves so much, and something tells me that knob will find its way onto a new Razor Crest at some point in the not too distant future. I could even see the very last shot of this season being him on a new ship, switching out a knob shortly after having given the child over to a Jedi to be trained. I also really enjoyed the last scene of this episode, where again Grogu is flinging around stormtroopers, which really reinforces this idea that he needs proper training before he really starts to embrace his anger and goes down the dark path. Not saying he's not allowed to defend himself, the Force is for knowledge and defense after all, but you really got the sense by the way he was looking that he was drawing on all his anger and fear to do what he was doing. Also, going along with that, Moff Gideon is such a fantastic villain, and he was great in that final scene with Grogu. It's so nice to see a calm, cold, calculating villain who really has all his stuff together. He gives off a little bit of that Tarkin vibe, and reminds us of one of the big reasons why the Empire was something to be feared. However, if I did have any little gripes about this episode, it would be that once again Stormtrooper aim is terrible, unless they're shooting at Din Djarin, at which point it's so good they only ever manage to hit him in the Beskar, never in the exposed areas in between pieces. Also, and maybe more of a question or questions, and less of a gripe, but what was Boba Fett up to for the last 5 years? Why did he never get his armor back before this? Did he think it was lost in the Sarlacc pit and only discovers Cobb Vanth had it after the Mandalorian showed back up on Tatooine? Has he been on Tatooine this whole time, or tooling around the galaxy on Slave One and doing who knows what? And he only came back to Tatooine for Fennec Shan or something like that, at which point he heard about someone wearing his armor, and then he went looking for it and found the Mandalorian. And these aren't pressing or make it or break it questions, it's just me being curious. So in closing here, what wasn't to love about this episode other than how short it was and maybe the odd way Stormtrooper aim works? The return of Boba Fett was everything we could have hoped for and more, and Tamora Morrison just absolutely owned the part. So cool that they got him to do it, and I never thought in my wildest dreams back when episode 2 came out and he played Jango Fett that one day we'd get to see him play Boba Fett as well. We also saw Grogu reach out through the Force and maybe connect with the Jedi, but will they actually show up and look for him? And if they do, will it be one we've seen before or a brand new one? Could it even be Luke Skywalker? Only time will tell, I suppose. Either way, I'm excited to find out. And somehow, this show just keeps getting better and better. Well, that's all I've got for this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you thought of this episode and the return of Boba Fett. Everything you could have hoped for and more, or not. Whatever the case may be, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.